From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Getting in touch with nature.
It is relaxing to be out here, that's for sure.
We head into the woods for a forest bath. A rebellion in Russia as the Black Sea grain deal hangs in the balance.
It's all just leads to a lot of uncertainty.
How it's impacting our markets. And parts of the Midwest see rain while others deal with dangerous storms. We get the latest snapshot on crop conditions right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. A storm system pushed through the Midwest over the weekend, producing nearly 400 storm reports. But was it enough to help areas of the Corn Belt dealing with drought conditions? USDA releasing its latest crop progress report, but much of this report was taken before those rains moved in. It now says 50% of the corn crop is rated good to excellent. That's down 5% from last week. Soybeans also continuing to suffer in the drought. That crop now rated 51% good to excellent, down 3% from last week. Winter wheat harvest still slow at 24%, well behind the 5-year average of 33%. Meanwhile, high heat continues to be an issue in the south. In Abilene, Texas, it's been so hot, cookies can be baked without an oven. More than 50 million people from Arizona to Louisiana are coping with oppressive temperatures, some areas hitting 100 degrees or higher, according to the Weather Prediction Center.
This is a very dangerous sort of heat wave, and with the humidity mixed in, there's really not even any relief in the evening periods as well.
Forecasters say the higher than usual temps will likely spread to the Mississippi Valley and continue through the July 4th holiday. While the South battles heat, major storms with hail, wind, and possible tornadoes struck in Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana. Here you see one of the tornadoes caught on camera by Eric Ford. This storm hitting in Greenwood, Indiana. It's reported at least 4 tornadoes touched down in the state on Sunday. And those storms are continuing to push east. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht has an update.
Yeah, Clint, the way the atmosphere is shaping up, kind of a classic setup for East Coast storms. So we got a ridge of high pressure building back out here. That's what that H is indicating. Back out here to the west with the white lines going to the north. And then a low pressure system working to the east coast. So where the lines come back down, that is a trough, and it's enhanced energy for some of these storms, these showers to fire. Now this is going to continue to move to the east for our Tuesday night. Back along the plains, we start to set up another ridge, and then on the outside of the ridge near these white lines, the next couple of days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, as I drop the clicker, Thursday and Friday, these showers are going to develop and then work down off of the ridge and to the southeast. And that's what we're going to be following this entire week. The development along the plains with some of these what are called ridge riders riding the big circle right in there. And there's Thursday at midnight. Take the reflectivity as a grain of salt. These can develop in a number of different locations. Let's go and take a look at what's going on in South Dakota. We'll start off looking at a nice little crop here. The rains over the weekend did help some producers out there. Dennis is sending this one in. South Dakota says 3 inches of rain has turned the corn around fast. He says he was about ready to give up. Let's hope more timely rains will help keep that crop going. We'll talk more about those timely rains coming up in just a bit.
Russian President Vladimir Putin faced the gravest threat to his authority in decades over the weekend when Russian Wagner forces marched toward Moscow. That's before a deal was struck with President Putin, brokered by the president of Belarus. It apparently allows the head of the Wagner group to go unpunished and into exile, and his soldiers to get amnesty. Now the head of the group has released his first audio statement since he staged the aborted armed rebellion. He defended the move as a reaction to an attack on his forces in Ukraine that killed 30 of his fighters. He didn't offer any details as to where he was or what his future plans are. Wagner's forces were key to Russia's only land victory in months in Ukraine in Bakhmut. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us. And Michelle, many market watchers are wondering what all this conflict within Russia will mean for the war in Ukraine and the Black Sea grain deal.
Clinton, the Wagner Group turned on Russia and threatened an area that's important to their wheat export program before that truce was agreed to. This is putting into question the already shaky future of the Black Sea grain initiative. Wheat traders chased that headline early Monday because of the threat to wheat exports out of one of Russia's main ports. Plus, Russia's already threatened not to extend the export deal after July 18th, which the UN warns could hike food prices and add to world hunger.
It's all just leads to a lot of uncertainty with a backdrop of the expiration of the Ukrainian export corridor coming up upon us. And the Russians continuing to say that they don't have any interest in extending that corridor. I can't imagine that the odds got any higher after everything that happened this weekend. And so the market is, reasonably concerned about, what wheat looks like from an export standpoint going forward.
However, the wheat market faded the news later in the day as cooler heads prevailed.
Had that lasted longer, had that possible coup lasted more than just Saturday morning, I think it might have had more of an influence on the markets. I don't really know that it's changed the situation as far as available grain coming out of Ukraine anytime soon.
But bottom line is the political tension creates more uncertainty for the wheat market and may have a longer-term impact on crude oil supplies. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. The cattle market has cooled off a little bit since its big run a few weeks back. The latest cattle on feed report, a bit of a surprise on several fronts. Cattle on feed and feedlots with capacity of 1,000 head or more on June 1st totaled 11.6 million head. That's down 3% from the same period last year. Placements during May totaled 1.96 million head. That's up 5% compared to June 1st of 2022, while marketings came in at 1.95 million head, also higher, up 2% from a year earlier. The biggest surprise coming from placements as drought concerns and strong prices pulled more cattle into the lot. The USDA says placements were up for almost all weight categories,
which is a sign that you are digging pretty deeply into that supply that's left outside feedlots. But the fact that you're placing some of those heavier cattle would also indicate that some of those may have been heifers which people were thinking about retaining and are now questioning whether they're going to have the forage and the wherewithal to breed them and carry them forward.
Analysts also say continued reductions in feedlot supplies later this year may not be as large as previously thought. Drovers.com adding reduced packer buying and slow processing rates likely limited last month's marketings.
Flip Your Soil on Ag Day is brought to you by Economics, farming's go-to information resource. Get your questions answered at nutrient-economics.com.
This week we're looking at how you can flip your soil to improve soil health and increase yield. Increasing organic matter is the benchmark the industry uses to measure improvements in soil health. But how hard is it to build? Actually, it can take years, according to agronomist Mitch Hora with Continuum Ag.
So in order to build up our organic matter by 1%, we have to add 20,000 pounds of stable organic material to our soils. 20,000 pounds, that can take some major time.
In fact, Hora says they added over a point of organic matter to their whole farm, but it was a process that took over a decade.
1.4% buildup in organic matter is very significant. The whole farm average is now over 5% organic matter. Extremely good. But it was through a multi-year process, being diligent with no-till so we don't lose carbon, and being diligent with cover crops so we can pull down carbon. As stratified all the way down to a meter deep, this is building up our soil carbon, just the soil carbon itself, to the tune of about 49 tons of carbon that we put into our soil when we're looking all the way down to a meter.
While big gains in organic matter take several years, Hora says you can move the needle in just the first year and see improved biological activity through just reducing tillage and adding cover crops. A lack of rain is continuing to push some markets higher. Michelle Rook will join us once again for a look at that and take a look at the turnaround in hogs.
I'm Charles Denny. The idea of forest bathing. It's a walk in the woods that can have great mental and physical health benefits. That story from Bledsoe Creek State Park in Gallatin, Tennessee, coming up on Ag Day.
Soybeans surging again on Monday as weekend rains over the Corn Belt missed some key growing areas. Michelle Rook is back with analysis from John Payne.
John Payne with HedgePoint Global Markets joining us, and of course, soybeans higher on Monday, John. And, was that weather or was that a demand push from the products?
Well, I think the weather certainly has played a factor in the price action over the last 2-3 weeks. But I think today's action and the action that we'll see over the next couple of days will be more dictated by the near-term supply of physical cash prices, which would be bullish for beans, just given that the U.S., essentially the Chicago Board of Trade price, which represents more of the Midwest United States, profit margins for the end using product are pretty good. And then you have the fact that there's an uncertain crop ahead. So I would think that, we'll see some decent price action on the front months of July soybeans, we'll say. I think a lot of it depends on what the product deliveries are. So for meal and oil specifically.
Corn ended mixed on Monday. John, do you think that the market was kind of disappointed with the rain coverage over the weekend?
I think to a degree, there's certain areas in central Illinois that didn't get anything. I don't know the numbers, Michelle, you've heard folks trading, but I would assume, let's just talk about a 170 would be maybe the areas that we're looking at right now. And you're still looking at a stocks to use number that would be around 10%. And that's without many demand cuts. So I think at this point, you're now looking, can we be worse than 170? Those areas are going to come from Illinois. If we had a huge major crop failure in Illinois, we would have issues, obviously, with that number. But the rains hit, at least in Iowa, from what we saw on the radar. I'm sure you can get plenty of comments that'll say it didn't. But I think at this point, our numbers are kind of zeroing in on 170, plus or minus five bushels to the acre.
The other headline that we saw was what was going on with Russia, and we didn't trade that the entire session. So talk about how the market handled that.
Well, this is one of those events that you're kind of happy the markets were closed because, you just talk about a huge, the ramifications of what would happen should have that event happened, is very uncalculable. The world's relying on Russia to export right now. And if there'd be some reason where they're not going to export, that would change the game. But once that the froth kind of subsided there, you look at where we are on the Black Sea prices and things are still very cheap. So I think delivery will be here a little ugly for a market like wheat because there's a lot of supply available. The U.S. isn't getting any business. And from what I hear, the U.S. supplies are rather large, especially in the Chicago side where the harvest has been pretty good.
Yes, that's John Payne with HedgePoint Global Markets. With Markets Now, we'll have more Ag Day coming up.
To find John's newsletter, This Week in Grain and Oilseeds, head over to www.thisweekingrain.com. Ag Day is brought to you by Farm Shop MFG. Did you know that 20% of stored corn is often overventilated by 3 points of moisture? On 100,000 bushels, that's a whole semi-load. Stop this problem for less with the End Zone for Corn by Farm Shop MFG. Specially priced at $2,100 per unit while supplies last.
We already talked about that earlier, that trough, that low pressure system developing at the surface on the East Coast. That is going to kick up the possibility of some strong straight line winds anywhere a thunderstorm develops. We turn back to kind of a quiet pattern into our Wednesday morning and Wednesday night before we start to see what this is saying. These isolated bouts of some stronger winds. What that's saying is that we're going to get those thunderstorms developing along the outside of the ridge, which is going to be back down here to the south. That'll carry to the east and to the southeast as we go through the night. And that's where you get those pockets of not only thunderstorms, but also as they degrade, as they start to fall apart. Strong straight line winds on the outskirts of them. So again, this is Thursday at 3 a.m. We're going to be on a lookout for some of those thunderstorms developing through the overnight hours and as they move through the atmosphere, producing some strong straight line winds. For example, this is Thursday at 7 p.m. with strong straight line winds into Missouri. Like I said earlier, take this with a grain of salt. These are very small, and the smaller the feature is, the harder it is to model it out in the future or to forecast it out in the future. But that is the kind of pattern that we're going to be in following these complex, one or two complex through the overnight hours that could develop not only heavy rains, but some strong winds. Temperatures this afternoon, where's the ridge building? Right where you see the triple-digit heat. As you get back up here towards the north, things start to cool off with that low pressure system and that trough digging in on the East Coast. Yeah, temperatures around 79 degrees in Rochester, 80 in New York City, 71 up in Maine. As for that temperature outlook, so this goes through 4th of July, and you got a pocket of some cooler air near the Four Corners, including Colorado, and then the heat continues to stick around not only the Gulf Coast states, but back up in towards Minnesota as well. Precipitation outlook looking a little bit better than the last couple of weeks. We'll start off with Elkhart, mostly cloudy, high around 93 degrees, low of 70. Glasgow, partly cloudy. Kentucky, high of 84, low of 60. And then what about Orange? Not yellow or blue, high around 77 degrees, low of 66.
Registration is open for the 2023 Pro Farmer Crop Tour, August 21st through the 24th. Attend one of our nightly meetings or join online as we gain insight on the 2023 growing season. Visit profarmercroptour.com/register to select the stop nearest you.
The latest cold storage report from USDA is being viewed as friendly to one part of the dairy market, zeroing in on cheese. Inventory actually increased from April, but all the categories were down from a year ago, and market analyst Robin Schmall says that's unusual for this time of year.
Generally, they increase. American cheese increased 10.6 million pounds. We were up on Swiss cheese 2 million, up on other cheese 9.4, and total cheese was up 21.9 million. So that aspect of the cold storage report was friendly to the market.
On the butter side, Schmall says the report was neutral, but he says butter inventory has increased 14% above a year ago. He predicts prices to stay in the sideways trading pattern, which they've been in since the beginning of the year. Now, cottage cheese is making a comeback thanks to Gen Z and millennials sharing recipes on social media platforms such as TikTok. It's being featured in everything from ice cream, pasta sauce to pancakes. One market research firm says there's been an almost 16% increase in cottage cheese sales recently in the U.S. Still ahead, we head into the forests of Tennessee to take a bath in nature in the country.
AgDay is brought to you by Lamar's Toy Store, the largest and most diversified farm toy store in the U.S. They have new and old and do restorations and customizations too. You need to see it to believe it. Visit lamarstoystore.com or call us at 712-546-4305.
In the Country on AgDay is brought to you by Pivot Bio. What if you had the nitrogen you need already on seed? Pivot Bio is the first company to apply nitrogen on seed. The nitrogen you need, now on seed, from Pivot Bio. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
Getting out in the beauty of nature has tremendous benefits, and the University of Tennessee Extension now offers what's known as forest bathing. UT's Charles Denny shows us what it's all about.
A pretty morning and a great time to walk among the trees at Bledsoe Creek State Park in Gallatin. But far more than a hike, this is forest bathing. No actual tub involved, and about the only water you'll see is the creek itself. The idea here is a stroll through nature as a way to boost your physical and mental health and your knowledge.
Well, I've always wanted to know more about trees and flowers and plants and the woods, and it is relaxing to be out here, that's for sure.
And the sugarberry leaf doesn't have this type of serrating.
Leanne Faust with UT Extension in Sumner County leads the group, telling them about the 24 or so varieties of trees native to Bledsoe Creek. She wants to promote better health and give people an appreciation for the beauty of the area.
It makes that connection when you're in the forest, because this is being on the forest bathing walk. You're sort of really attuned to the trees around you. So I thought that would help connect people a little bit with trees by knowing their names. I mean, we love to know names.
The concept of forest bathing started in Japan some 4 decades back as a type of mental health therapy. The idea is to slow down and surround yourself with nature.
About halfway through the walk, the group stops for meditation time, listening to the sounds of the woods, focusing on their breathing. For UT Extension Forester David Merker, many days, this is his office.
Just the mental restoration that comes by walking through the woods, fresh, clean air, birds singing, wildlife, wildflowers as well. It's just an opportunity to unwind. It's really a delightful profession to be able to work in the woods.
So if life gets to be a little too much from time to time, maybe find your nearest wooded pathway and follow it. Educational exercise and a nice tandem, trees and human health, taking care of the woods and taking care of ourselves. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles, and that's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.